What's up, guys? Ergor here again. Yesterday, Last Epoch Season 2 launched, and I wanted to talk to you today about what my first day and a half or so has gone like. When I first started, when the servers went live, I rolled my Sentinel. I went Forge Guard initially because I wanted to try out the Forged Weapon build. I really wanted to try out Forge Master's Might, but I didn't wind up actually getting high enough level to try that out before I wound up switching to Paladin, because the Forged Weapons build, I don't know if my build just was bad or my gear sucked, but it wasn't working very well, and it wasn't very fun either. It just wasn't very fun. I don't know, the gameplay loop of Forge Strike to summon Forged Weapons doesn't seem to thrill me very much. So I switched over to Paladin and I went with the Judgment build. It's a build that's on max roll. I'll link it down in the description. I decided that since I had already tried one build that wasn't going well, I wanted to make sure the next one I switched to was going to be powerful, and let me tell you, it's a good build. I'm going to be using this character who's quite powerful at this point. I'm going to leverage them to farm up a bunch of gear for future characters. I have a few builds that I want to try out and figure out for myself, and now that I've gotten the first character to endgame, any follow-up characters that I make going forward will be a lot easier to get to endgame, so it'll be easier to try builds that I'm not as sure about. But yeah, I really enjoy the Judgment playstyle. It's pretty interesting. It's very powerful, very tanky. The Sentinel Rework has proved to be quite fun so far. I haven't tried Void Knight yet. That's going to be one of the first ones that I try after I'm done with this character. But Paladin is very good. Very, very good. Very tanky, but it also has a lot of damage built into it as well. In particular, I really love the new Symbols of Hope. The new way Symbols of Hope works, if you want to just build into it just being a passive buff rather than using the active on it, it's up forever. You can get it up to 5 stacks with certain specialization nodes. There's 2 nodes that each give you 1 more max symbol to a total of 5. And if you have those, even without the Symbols of Hope gain rate passive, you will have 5 symbols up at all times. Obviously, it takes a few moments when you first enter an Echo for them to start stacking up. But once they've stacked up, you've got them forever. And until you consume them for something, but if you're not built around making the active stronger, it's better to just leave them up. As for some of the new content that came in Season 2, I am quite enjoying the Woven Echoes system and all of the other stuff around the new faction so far. I haven't gotten to any of the new crafting systems yet, other than the Woven Enchanter, which is cool. A lot of the new enchanted affixes for idols are quite powerful, and it seems like the system is fairly generous with Memory Amber. I have been getting a lot of tombs. The tombs and the cemeteries are both quite common, which is good. I was a little worried before the season started that they weren't going to be that common, so it was going to just be like only an occasional mechanic, but they spawn on your map all the time, and it seems like you're basically guaranteed to get at least 1 Woven Echo to drop whenever you go into a cemetery. So you've always got plenty to put onto your map manually as well. And of course, you can always buy more from Mask if you've got extra Memory Amber for that as well. One of the Woven Echoes that I thought was pretty cool was the Conquered Tower Woven Echo, which is, I think it's about 6. I forget how many floors it is. But you're going up through floors of a tower, and on every floor, there's guaranteed to be 1 nemesis there, and then sometimes they'll have shrines as well. So you get to just rapidly go through the nemesis cycle a couple of times and get some decent loot from that system. And then at the top of the tower, once you get all the way to the top, there is a nemesis boss who is separate from the Nemesis system, so you don't get to do like the Empower, Banish, or Challenge choice with this. He just spawns in and you fight him. And then when you kill him, he drops a bunch of weapons, the weapons that have a chance to upgrade themselves whenever you kill a Harbinger with them. So that's pretty cool. I haven't really interacted with that system yet, so I don't know how exactly that works, but it seems like it's probably a pretty powerful system, and you get a lot of them from that boss, so that's a pretty solid way to farm those if you wind up wanting a specific one for your build. There was also the False Temple Woven Echo, which was kind of neat. It's just a map, big open map that's got tons of shrines in them, and you just have to run around activating all the shrines. I particularly liked it because on my Weaver tree, I beelined over to the nodes for the loot lizards. One of those nodes gives you a higher chance for your shrines to be a loot lizard shrine when they spawn. So that's kind of fun. I like the loot lizards. I think it's fun, especially the loot lizard shrines, especially since they have a chance to sometimes split into a bunch of loot lizards when you kill them. I've always found that kind of fun to do, so I invested in that, and you get to run into a lot of those when you do the shrine maps with those points invested. I was a little disappointed that tombs don't spawn in the campaign. I was kind of surprised. I feel like it would be a bit better if they followed the PoE model for new mechanics that they add in a season, like having it. So, for example, this season, if they had made it so that most zones that you go to, a tomb will spawn, but just make it so that the tombs in the campaign give a lot less, maybe make it so that they don't have a woven enchanter at the end, or maybe make it so that the memory amber that drops is reduced a lot as well. Mostly just make it so that it's a way for you to get used to how the mechanic works and have some access to like the special Weaver idols, because Weaver idols can drop in tombs. That would have been cool in my opinion, because honestly, it didn't really feel like I was playing a different season until I got to endgame, which I don't think is great. It was helped by the fact that I was playing a reworked class. It was definitely helped by that, but we're not going to have a class getting reworked every season. Eventually, it's going to get to the point where all of the classes are completely modernized, and then we won't need to do that anymore. And so we're going to need stuff that's happening in the campaign to make it feel more fun. And granted, the campaign you can get through pretty quickly in this game, which is good. But I do still think, at least for newer players, it's good to have something that happens in the campaign to make it feel different. Because there's a lot of players who, they play a game like Last Epoch or Path of Exile or Diablo 4. They play it every season, but they only play for a couple of days. And so if a player who plays like that comes into a game like Last Epoch and they don't even get to the end game until like day 2, maybe even day 3 if they're really new or really casual, and then they stop playing like a day later, they're barely going to get to the new content. And then if the next season comes along in 3 or 4 months and they do it again and it goes the exact same way, they're gonna feel like they just played the exact same game as they did the other time. And if that happens like a couple times in a row, they're going to stop playing the game, because they're not going to feel like anything new happens with each season. So it's going to be like, well, I've already done this. Why am I going to do it again? So I really do think it's a good idea for 11th hour games to try and make sure going forward that they put something new in the campaign. They did it with season 1. With Harbingers of Ruin, the Nemesis mechanic was put in the campaigns, and then all of the endgame bosses obviously were kept in the endgame. And that was perfect. We ran into Nemesises all the time. It wasn't every zone, but it doesn't have to be every zone like PoE does. As long as it's often enough that you're running into that mechanic, I feel like that's good enough. But thankfully, I do feel like that's something that's pretty easy to fix. I mean, generally speaking, I would imagine most mechanics that they wind up adding to the game will probably be something like a nemesis or a tomb that could just be slotted into the campaign. And in my opinion, that's the right choice. But yeah, other than the disappointment about them not being in the campaign, I do quite like the new seasonal mechanics around cemeteries and tombs and such. I'm looking forward to getting to some of the later Woven Echoes. Apparently a lot of them have corruption requirements before you can actually slot them into your map, so I'm not actually able to do them yet. I haven't quite unlocked Empowered Monolith yet. I'm probably going to wind up getting it unlocked later tonight after I finish working on this video. And then I will, in a day or two, do another update video for you guys. It'll probably be once I'm kind of done with this character. I don't know how far I'm going to go with this character before I reroll another character. I usually wind up playing one character for like 2 to 3 days, and then I'll roll a second character and do the same thing. That's why I frequently don't wind up finishing ARPGs. I don't wind up killing like the very last bosses and stuff, because I tend to wind up wanting to try another build before I can get to that point. But Last Epoch is one of the better games for that though, because they do have really solid catch-up mechanics for your secondary characters on a season, so that's helpful for that. Speaking of nemesises, I really like the change to the boss word system. Nemesises and other mini bosses not having it is very nice. I can kill a nemesis so fast now. They're so much less annoying, and on actual bosses it doesn't seem that drastically different. Like a couple of bosses, I fought them and I specifically got their health down to the ward proc and then just kind of sat there to see how fast it was draining. And it doesn't seem like it's draining that fast. So you do still need to do pretty good damage to kill it quickly. But my paladin currently definitely outgears the content I'm doing in the monolith. And I tear right through the ward on the bosses like it's nothing. So at least for the early game, it feels pretty good. We'll see once I start getting to like higher corruptions and stuff, because the scaling definitely will go up quite a lot for that. But overall, I find it to be a very good change. The new Weaver's Will items that were added as well seem kind of cool. I haven't really toyed around with any of them yet, but I do really like the looks of them. Some of the mechanics sound interesting. The one that gives you that applies a spider's debuff to some enemies is pretty good. The two-handed sword that gets double stats when you're fighting a boss or rare is interesting, because the baseline stats on it aren't like that crazy. They're decent, but they're not crazy. But if you can get some really solid Weaver's Will stats onto there, then I could see that being a pretty powerful boss killing weapon. So I'm gonna definitely toy around with that at some point. I haven't really sat down and considered what I could do with the spear that gives you a chance to randomly cast Smite, Frostclaw, or Stormbolt with it, but I'm sure there's probably some pretty good things you could do with that. One thing I need to figure out with it, which shouldn't take much testing once I decide to actually do it, I need to figure out if it will only cast the ability that's associated with the class you're playing, or if it can cast any of them. So like, if I use it on my paladin, will it only cast Smite, or can it still cast Frostclaw or Stormbolt? Because at that point, I'm not sure how great it's going to be. I suppose if you're doing like either a Lightning Javelin build or a Lightning Smite build with it, then 2 out of the 3 procs on it can scale with what you're building for, with like your lightning damage and all that stuff. So I could see that being pretty good on Sentinel. I could also see it being kind of decent for Mage, because they could convert their Frostclaw to either fire or lightning, so you then are scaling 2 of the 3 abilities as well. As for Primalist, I'm not entirely sure if there's a way to convert Stormbolt. I don't think there is. I'm not super familiar with Primalist. However, Primalist does build around having tons of Stormbolt procs, and because of the way that Stormbolt functions a lot from my limited familiarity with it, I feel like it could still be a pretty good item for Primalist. So I could definitely see this spear having some builds that could use it. I'm definitely gonna try and figure out a way to toy around with it a little bit. I'll first have to see, the one I got has 12 Weaver's Will on it. So I'll have to see what I wind up getting on it in terms of stats. See if anything leans towards one of the classes over the other. The thing is the elemental essences that you need in order to proc the random casts requires a melee attack. So that works quite well for Sentinel and Primalist, because like a lot of the Primalist builds for Stormbolt are already built around using Gathering Storm, which is a melee attack, so that synergizes pretty easily. And then Sentinel, if you're doing that means it wouldn't really work for a Javelin build, since Javelin is a throwing attack. However, you could do a melee procking smite build. You could do like a Warpath smite procking build for sure. That could work decently. And then as for Frostclaw, I actually think that works probably almost as well as the Primalist does, because that makes this actually synergize quite well with Spellblade, because you can build Frostclaw to proc off of melee attacks already. So you just do a normal Spellblade build that incorporates that mechanic, and then you slot in this spear, and that just makes you get more Frostclaws as well as the other two spells. And then you frequently wind up scaling just generic elemental damage as a mage. So all of the abilities should scale fairly well with whatever you're doing. But yeah, my paladin's in a pretty good place so far. I don't have like any super crazy items. I'm pretty happy with the relic I have. I got lucky and it dropped with a exalted elemental damage over time, which is pretty good for this build. Probably my best item is my weapon, which dropped almost as is. The only thing I crafted onto it was the spell damage. And after I crafted the spell damage on and put this weapon on, it literally doubled my tooltip DPS for Judgment. So that was a huge upgrade for me. I haven't gotten any particularly awesome enchanted idols yet. And most of the Weaver idols I've gotten are like Ignite, Fire Penetration, and Fire Damage, which is great for this build. It's just not anything like special or exciting. So there's not really a whole lot to point out there yet, but I do look forward to finding some better items. And the rest of my gear is pretty much mediocre at best. I got some pretty decent affixes on this Weaver's Will ring, so I've been wearing that for a while. I mostly only have this helmet equipped for the reduced bonus damage taken from crits for now. I'll replace it once I find another source of it. Probably if I can like get a better roll on the shield or find a piece of armor that's got it. Having the mana gained on Vengeance hit is a pretty important stat to have for this build though, so it's going to be a bit difficult to replace this chest piece because that's a pretty rare stat. So yeah, I don't have any shards of that currently, so I kind of need to keep this chest piece. It's also, the other stats on it are really good too, so I'm probably going to be sitting on this chest piece for a while at this point. As for what I'm probably going to think about making going forward for my next few characters, I definitely want to do a Void Knight of some sort. I'm looking at doing something with probably spells, because Devouring Orb and Abyssal Echoes both look really cool, especially with the Devouring Orb changes. It looks like it's going to be a much less annoying ability to use. And the playstyle kind of looks a lot like ED Corruption from PoE 1, which I always really enjoyed. It's not quite the same because it's centered around your character rather than like something you cast, but stuff proliferates still. And so you get the little blast waves that proliferate through a group and kill everything. And it looks really cool. So I'm definitely going to try that out. and I want to try a Primalist at some point because Primalist is my least played class, so I need to kind of familiarize myself with it some more by playing it. I got a Boulder's Wrath. Doesn't have any crazy rolls, like its rolls are all kind of whatever, but I've been thinking about how to set up a Boulder's Wrath build that might be decent, because with being able to proc the earthquakes twice per 5 seconds now, I think we'll make it probably pretty decent, because it was already like okay-ish before. It was at least like okay for clearing echoes. I didn't have the chance to try it for bossing. I would imagine it's probably not super great for bossing pre-patch, but now in the patch it should probably be pretty good. And then I want to figure out a build for the Weaver's Spear that I was talking about earlier for sure. So I'm gonna figure something out for that. And I want to do the Chthonic Fissure Fire Whip build as well. That's something I've wanted to do for a while. You use the Spine of Malatros two-handed sword to replace the spirits on your Chthonic Fissure with Flame Whips. I've played it a couple times in the past, not to any like particularly difficult content, so I don't know how good it actually is overall, but it's at least decent for early endgame stuff. I want to see if I can scale it to be pretty good because I got a perfectly rolled spine, so I want to try that out. However, the thing is Chthonic Fissure got nerfed, and specifically the thing that sucks that got nerfed is the spirit frequency, because the Flame Whip frequency scales with spirit frequency. So that also nerfed this version of the spell as well. So I'm not sure if it's actually going to be any good, but I'm going to probably give it a try at some point. And then as for the character I'm currently playing right now, my plan is to just try and get to empowered monoliths, unlock forgotten knights, start farming harbingers, that kind of stuff. Start round out the build, get up to level 100, all that kind of stuff, and do as much of that as I can until I get bored with the character, and then I'll make a new one. But yeah, that's pretty much everything for the first day and a half of the patch. I'm having a lot of fun. I really like the patch. The new graphics are great, and I'm looking forward to playing even more. Like and subscribe if you liked the video, I really appreciate it. It'll also help you get notified whenever I upload my next video. Appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.